This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
Hello and welcome to the Rising Stars of Comedy. I'm Akriti Tyagi. Our guest for today is that pretty Anglo-Indian teacher of yours who would wear a cute dress and would make books breathe and shiver with her lipstick enunciations, except for one tiny detail. She's a 41-year-old stand-up comedian who would not cuff over tough words like many other would. Please welcome Radhika Vaz.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Miss Radhika Vaz.
Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Any married people here tonight? Even if you're not here with your spouse, any just marrieds? Married. How long have you been married, sir? 24. Oh my God. To the same person? More or less. Yeah, I've also been more or less married to the same person for the last 10 years. And the thing is, you always hear this, marriage is hard work. You have to work on it. It's like a box marriage. You have to put things in so that you can get something out. It is not hard work. It is long and tedious. It just goes on and on and on. You get married and it's right. You get married, it's exciting. And then after a couple of years, you're like, you're still here.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us on this
No
show.
problem. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us, what pushed you into comedy?
I think it was sort of like an accidental stumble, really. I was working for an advertising firm for a really long time. I was doing comedy in New York as sort of a hobby.
Okay.
And then it just was one of those things. I started doing it more and more frequently and just became the thing that I ended up doing.
So tell us, you've performed both in the US and India. Was there too much of a difference in terms of material and the audiences that you had to tweak or you had to redo to cater to any, certain set?
No. I mean, the material, I never tweaked at all. Both my shows, it's been the exact word for word pretty much. Except, some basic like cultural references that they would just not get. I'd probably change, but they're like minor.
Okay.
My shows deal with such universal topics that in a sense I didn't need to do that much tweaking. And also I think a lot of the time, because of the subject matter also, that it's a little adult, you know what I mean? So a lot of people thought I would change it for the Indian audience, but I didn't, and it was perfectly fine. It went extremely well. There wasn't a problem at all. So yeah, never changed that.
Married people are just annoying, okay? Not all married people, but the vast majority. And you know how I found this out? Because they're all on Facebook now, all right? And they live together in the same house, same dwelling, but they communicate with one another on Facebook, man. Right? What is wrong with these people? Happy birthday. And this is he's not even posting it on her page. He's posting it on his page.
So Radhika, tell me your influences on comedy.
So, I mean, I think my first influences, like the first time I knew what comedy was by watching movies, because we didn't have stand-up comedy, obviously, right, when I was growing up anyway. And so, basically just any kind of comedic film that I watched was always just very inspiring to see. You could just make somebody laugh that much. My dad traveled a little bit, like when he was really young pilot officer with the Air Force. He was in the States for a while, and he brought back a lot of LPs, which at the time, you remember the big records, with Bill Cosby shows and a couple of other comedians also, I think. But Bill Cosby is the one I remember. And he would play this for me. and I would listen to it, and it was basically a stand-up act.
Okay.
And it would just be, you know, my dad would be laughing, and I guess at some level I just was like, okay, if he's laughing, it must be a really cool thing. And I think that a little bit of that also sort of stuck with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is that the female comedians are far and few in between in the circuit. Was it difficult to break the barrier?
I don't know if I've broken the barrier.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess for me, being in India itself was such a big change that I wasn't necessarily aware or conscious of the male-female distinction, and maybe I will become a little bit more so as we move along. It's definitely there in the States. I mean, there's no question, and I'm 100% sure it's the same over here. The truth is that male actors make more money than their female counterparts. So in general, male performers tend to be treated differently from women performers. I don't know what the corporate show scene is like, but comedians are hired a lot to perform in for corporate events and things like that. I very rarely get that. My show, I don't know whether it's corporate friendly or what the deal is, or whether it's because I'm a woman. Like, I don't know how many of the women are being hired for that kind of thing. And I think that kind of stuff is even more telling than anything else. So I don't know if there's actually a barrier in India, but I'm willing to bet there is one.
Do you remember your first performance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me something about it.
I was so frightened that I remember
Where was
standing
this?
in New York. I was standing, I mean, my first solo show. No, because I've performed a lot before that in groups and stuff like that. But my first solo show.
Solos happens to be, you know, that.
And the first time for anything is always nerve-wracking. And I remember standing backstage in the dark because it was completely pitch dark. I couldn't keep the green room lights on because it was showing through the curtain. So my director called me and said, switch off your green room lights. So I got the green room light off. I'm standing there in complete darkness. I can hear everybody, like the audience outside, and literally I could feel like I wasn't going to vomit, but I had that same level of nausea. Like, I was like, why am I doing this? It felt like I was going to just jump off the 20th floor of a building. Like, that was the fear. It was just cold fear. I was like, I'm going to forget all my lines. Nobody's going to find this funny. Like, this is just complete rubbish that I've fabricated into thinking is a show. Like halfway through, people are just going to want to leave, and you just play out the worst case scenario. I just remember that. And then once I started, everything changed.
Okay.
Everything changed, just felt better.
Did you have people, in the sense, you know, your husband, your friends in the crowd?
I did. I don't remember if my husband was at the first show. I think maybe he was.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he was. He was at the first show. But yeah, definitely. I had a lot of friends in my first show. That's sort of the way all performers start. You know, your friends and your family are your support system, and they're the ones who bring their friends and family, and then suddenly you get to a point where you do a show and you know like 5 people and you don't know anybody else, and you're like, when did that happen? But the first show, you always have so many people who love you and who just want you to win. So that, you know, that's definitely there. But you don't think about that when you're standing backstage. You're like, it doesn't matter whether they want you to win or not. They, as far as you're concerned, in that moment, they're complete strangers who are going to hate everything you say. You don't even think.
How old are you? How old do you think I am? How old do you think I am? At this point, the person who's asked the question now has to give you a number that you're going to be happy with, which is any number under 30. You're 29. No, but you're close. Guess again. I give up. I'm 34. And at this point, you have to say, oh, but you don't look it. And you have to say the now to anybody who asks them the age. You have to say, how old are you? I'm 82. Oh, but you don't look it. How old are you? I'm 42. Oh, but you don't look it. How old are you? I'm 2 years old. Oh, but you don't look it.
So tell me, you wear polka dotted dresses. So that's like a cliche, and you have those dainty teacups in hand. So that's a cliched, obviously, you know, projected image of a woman from like 60s, 70s. And yet your sets are so bold and so, you know, they've got this spunk in them. How?
I think that was my first show, Unladylike, where I was dressed more like you are dressed today, dressed like a lady. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to surprise the audience a little bit, and I wanted to give them a full visual. I'm very visual myself, and I'm a big fan of, you know, costumes and wigs and makeup and drag queens, and I love all that stuff. So burlesque, I'm a big fan of all that. And, you know, I wanted to bring a little bit of that to my first show.
Okay.
And that's why I chose that particular outfit and the props and everything, because I wanted to create this sort of dissonance between what I was saying and what they were looking at. But I let that go with my second show because it was a joke that I did in my first show, and I felt like, how many times am I going to do the same old joke? And so with the second show, I'm dressed more like I am dressed now, right now. So, you know, yeah. So it was a costume idea. It wasn't really anything else. It was just a costume idea. And I really do want to make my next show a little bit more about the costumes and the makeup. And I love all that. I mean, I love the way you're dressed today, so.
When you're obviously standing on the stage, there are lights flooding in your eyes.
Yeah.
So, on a general basis, the audience is black.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite set of venue or an audience or a stage to perform on, or is it all similar for you?
I like performing in a more theatre setting.
Okay.
So I prefer, you know, St. Andrews in Bombay or the Epicenter or India Habitat, whatever, NCPA. I like to perform in a more theatre-like setting. I feel like I have more of the audience's attention. I feel like I'm giving them more attention. It's less distracting for me as a performer. I'm less of a fan of performing in bar venues and in lounges and stuff like that. Also, I feel the Indian audience in bars and lounges, they're not there yet. They haven't got to the point where they can order a drink and then pay attention to a show. It's almost like they just keep talking to each other, like the show is sort of like maybe it's going on and they don't really care. So maybe it's a bit of that, but I do prefer theatre venues in general. I like small venues just because sometimes the lights aren't as blinding. I don't need a mic. So if it's 100, 150 people, I don't actually use a mic.
Okay.
That's the experience I've had in the West. Acoustics are very good.
Okay.
I'm able to throw my voice that far. It's not a problem. So I like not having any of that technical stuff on me.
Yeah.
The lights aren't that bright. I can actually see the people in the audience a little bit. So I like that intimacy.
Okay.
But I've definitely performed in much larger spaces that are theatric in sort of design. With mics and lights and all of that stuff, and I still enjoy that. I still enjoy that as well.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is my show.